Hi, everyone. My name is Treiman, and I'm a graduate student at Washington University in St. Louis. And today, I will be presenting to you on our work that suggests that people rely on intuitive reasoning when training AI. AI has become a big part of our lives. It constantly helps us make choices. AI helps us decide what shows to watch or songs to listen to. AI also helps with big, important decisions, such as helping doctors with medical decisions and helping legal professionals with decisions pertaining to law. Now, intuitively, it may seem that AI is only helping us make choices. However, our relationship with AI is not so unidirectional because AI learns from watching us behave. This means that we can teach AI how to behave. To set up the current project, I first need to tell you about our previous project in which we demonstrated that, in fact, people change their behavior when training AI. To do this, we used the ultimatum game. This is a two-person economic task involving a proposer and a decider. The proposer gets a sum of money and has to make an offer to the decider. The decider, or in our case, the participant, can decide whether to accept or reject the offer. If the decider accepts it, then both players get the proposed amount. But if the decider rejects the offer, then both players walk away with nothing. Decades of data from this task looks exactly like data that we collected. When people receive unfair offers, they become less likely to accept it. Thus, this task measures subjective fairness. To test whether people change their behavior when training AI, we had some participants in the AI training condition train an AI to make proposals. Thus, these participants played the ultimatum game, but simply knew their choices would be used to train an AI proposer that they would be playing against in a follow-up session. So now the question arises. What happens when we compare the AI training conditions to the control condition? Interestingly, people become even more punitive when receiving an unfair offer. Regardless of whether they train an AI for themselves or for others, people in the AI training condition seem to want to promote fairness in AI. Intriguingly, we also found this effect persists over days in a session that didn't involve any AI training, suggesting that their responses became habitual. After running this study, one question really stood out to us. What strategies do people use when training AI? So now, I'm going to walk through our fact paper that starts to answer this question. So we considered two hypotheses. First, people may deliberate. They could realize that if they train the AI to be more fair, they can benefit from fair offers in the future. Therefore, it is optimal for them to reject unfair offers. Alternatively, people may simply punish unfair offers because this is an intuitively appealing thing to do. Importantly, the experiment I just discussed does not dissociate between these hypotheses because both encourage participants to punish unfair offers. This is because participants in our prior work that I just discussed played as the responder in both sessions of our experiment. However, when we change this so that participants in the first session train an AI responder they are going to make offers to in a follow-up session, the dynamics of this task change. Now, when people use deliberation, they should realize that by accepting more unfair offers, they can teach the AI responder to accept more of their unfair, greedy proposals in the future. However, when using intuition, they should do the same as before, simply rejecting more unfair offers. Critically, the results of the experiment can distinguish between these hypotheses because they predict opposite behaviors. Interestingly, The behavior of this experiment looked identical, even though the structure of the task had completely changed. People still continued to punish unfair offers, but unlike before, this now went against their own interest. Thus, this suggests that people use intuition and not deliberation to train AI. However, it's possible that people did not understand the task structure or the AI training process, so they may have deliberated but not understand why training an AI to be fair is not the optimal solution. To rule out this hypothesis, we conducted 2 experiments where participants had to answer several questions about the task structure and AI training process. Participants were not allowed to play the ultimatum game until they answered every single question correctly. This ensured that participants knew the task structure and the AI training process. I am not going to show you the results here, but we replicated the results as before, once again suggesting that people rely on intuition when training AI. However, it's possible that people strategically chose to prioritize fairness rather than maximize personal gain. In other words, people may value fairness over personal gain to such a degree that they're willing to sacrifice both their current and future rewards to ensure that AI punishes people for acting unfairly. To test this alternative explanation, we conducted 2 experiments where we made fairness concerns irrelevant. Now the question arises, how do we do that? To do this, we only used the AI training for self-condition and told participants that they would be the only person to ever encounter the AI they train. So, if participants are deliberating, they should realize that training an AI to prioritize fairness is fruitless since they are only punishing themselves, since the AI can only punish them. We ran 2 experiments to test whether participants deliberately train AI. In experiment 3A, participants did not complete a comprehension quiz. In experiment 3B, participants completed the same comprehension quiz as in experiment 2 with an additional question to ensure that participants knew that they and only they would be the only person to ever encounter the AI. So now for the results. We once again found that people training AI rejected more unfair offers and prioritized AI for fairness, even after they demonstrated that they know that training AI for fairness is pointless. These findings, once again, suggest that people are not deliberating when training AI. While our findings suggest that people often rely on intuition when training AI, it's important to acknowledge some limitations of the study. One key assumption we make is that if people are deliberating, their goal is to maximize rewards. But that might not always be the case. Participants may have other motivations like fairness. While experiment 3 was designed to rule out some of these alternative explanations, it's possible that people deliberated for reasons that we didn't account for. Another limitation is that we can't necessarily generalize these findings to other AI training contexts, especially not to high stakes or more real-world AI training scenarios, while the incentives and consequences may look different. Our findings suggest that people not only rely on intuition when training AI, but that this tendency is also difficult to override. As a result, they may unintentionally embed their own biases and heuristics into the AI through the training data. This poses a challenge for AI developers tasked to train AI to make unbiased or optimal decisions by using human training data. Specifically, these behavioral shifts can lead to unreliable and discriminatory outcomes in AI systems. Now that we've identified the problem, I plan to build on this work by exploring ways to improve the training process and ultimately improve AI-assisted decision-making. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.